the first aspect what we are supposed to do is something called as the gap analysis sessions. So the gap analysis sessions, it probably gives us complete all prerequisite topics necessary before we really launch with our training contents. So that all speaks about, so I have come to know about that you have already learned about a few aspects of DP and SNP also. So we will also have a complete introduction of how is PPDS is something going to be more say increasing the efficiency of the client's overall system, or at the same time how it is going to enhance the overall system wise improvement with as a client, and as a planner how am I going to get beneficial in the context of planning. All those aspects will be more in detail we'll be speaking in the context of gap analysis sessions first. That gives a much more briefer idea about, or in the higher scope about how is this particular module is helping the client and his challenges. Then we will speak about the training contents. So the training contents here, it is more about like what are the different topics will be the part of our discussion, starting from so I'm going to also now after this discussion I'm going to share you a Word document so that you could see the details of what are the training contents which will be the part of our discussion. Yeah. Then we have something called as user stories. Speaking about the user stories, it's more about like we are trying to use the methodologies which we learn in the PPDS. How are they going to be used in the different challenges, and we are trying to take up the real-time challenges and how are they been fixed, or you say like how are they been fulfilled with these user stories. So which gives us a much more broader view of different business aspects, and also the in the of which it has been used. So that's these three important aspects, starting with gap analysis sessions, then the training contents, and then the user stories. Am I clear so far, Jay?
Yes, Anil.
Wonderful. So master data requirements, we will first understand probably what are the different fields from, right from the OLTP side. How are they making the context of planning more feasible for me to my APO? Okay, so for that, I will first start with supply chain operation reference model. So let me first hear from you, Jay. What is your comfort towards this Scor? Have you you had an opportunity to work with this model, Scor model?
Yes, core model. I'm aware of the supply chain operational model. So
Wonderful.
I'm head of those models and the different uh, uh, different ways of calculations and those things. I have gone through those information as well.
Wonderful. That's very good. Yeah. So let's try to see the very essence of how is PPDS is something different, and what it makes the client to really opt for this module, and then we will try to look more about this the architecture and other details. But probably today we will try to just look for like, okay, as a client what makes me to opt for this module. Yeah, let's try to go in certain detail for that. Yes, Jay?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. Okay, so I hope you are familiarized with this MTS, MTO, and an MTE.
Yes, Anil, I'm aware of this one. This one we have seen in the production planning concept, right?
Okay, so what would you see like? So as a client, when I'm trying to emphasize on my different processes, how would a client can determine which in which business segment does it falls? Any thought process on that, or I can brief with an example if needed. Yeah.
Made to stock, for example, what I understand is you manufacture and put that for stock, and whenever there is an order, you release that one. And
Mm-hmm.
made to order is something wherein you want to generate the product only basing on the order which you are taking from the customer. So the
Mm-hmm.
first type of thing is, for example, made to stock is something where you don't want to give lot of time to customers to sell. You want to deliver at a quicker rate. Maybe you go for make to stock. When you
Mm-hmm.
have sufficient bandwidth available, you go for make to order so that you have customer based order generation. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not aware of. I'm not much looked into the make to engineering because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't see that one.
Okay, so we'll really classify this, these three different processes. How can we really easily classify them? We'll take with a small example, Jay, and then we will see like, okay, this is an MTS, this is an MTO, and this is an MTE. So for that, I need a small help from you. So let me make the example of making up a sandwich. Okay, making of a sandwich. Now, can you please tell me what are the things which are needed for me to make this sandwich? Yeah.
Bread,
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yeah.
couple of vegetables or what you call tomato, onions,
Veggies.
or
Okay. Wonderful.
veggies, then butter.
Wonderful. Okay. So I made it a very short little list: bread, butter, veggies, and spices. Wonderful. Now let us see in the context of make to stock. That was a really very good point. That okay. So before the order was placed, you have already made it ready. That's the make to stock scenario. Perfectly fine. And then the next one, make to order, where probably when the customer has placed an order, then you are trying to do something for him. That's a make to order scenario. Then we have make to engineering. What is difference between this make to order and make to engineering? Now let us say a customer goes to the service provider, like say the one who is making sandwiches for him, and he says, basically we know our sandwiches are having two slices of bread. Probably, but I say I need my sandwich which has three slices of bread. Or I say my sandwich should also have some slices of fruit, something like that. So this is a very customized product which as a customer or as a requester, I would try to redefine the way how my product should look like. Then I would say it's a make to engineering.
Okay.
So, or maybe you say like we have our sandwiches in say in triangular in shape, or I will say like my sandwich should look like in circular or in a square, something like that. So it's very precise specifications which customer placed up in the process of making is what I say it as a make to engineering process. Okay. So now we see that okay, make to stock, make to order, make to engineering. These all of these processes here we have something called as how am I trying to classify this or how am I trying to give the weightages using something called as a push and pull process. Okay, to understand what is the push and pull process, we will first see what are different processes which are involved. Okay, like say in making up the sandwich, say for example, I'm supposed to first say slicing of bread. Okay, then say slicing of vegetables and say assembling. Okay, assembling of sandwich. Okay, we'll keep it to this three different so these are the three different processes which are needed for me in order to make up my sandwich. Okay, so in the context of MTS, make to stock, are these three processes are getting influenced by the customer order? No. Am I right? Because the sandwich has already been prepared, right? So before the order was placed, it was already been prepared. So all of these processes, I would say these are push processes. So what's the takeaway point? A process which is not influenced by the order or with the customer requirement or demand, I would say it's a push process, right? Now we will take the
Yes.
make to order scenario. In this process, make to order, this process called assembling of sandwich, it was been postponed. Am I right? So maybe they have already sliced up the bread for you. They have already sliced up the veggies for you. The only thing is they are waiting for your order, and the moment you say like, okay, I need a sandwich with extra butter or extra spice or something like that, they are gonna start assembling it for you. So this is a some process which has been influenced by the customer order, right? So I would say this is a pull process here, right? So in any business context we see we have a combination of both push and pull processes. So if I come back to this make to stock, that means my push processes are higher than my pull processes. Agreed? Because everything is already been done for me before I really have made an order in make to stock. So when I go to a small bakery and I ask him, hi, I need a sandwich, he just gives me the one which is already there. Whereas if I go to a MACD, it's a make to order scenario. Am I right? So it has push processes. Yeah, it still has push processes. It doesn't mean that okay, the moment I place an order, he goes to a market and brings the bread for me. No, he has already put some processes are already in push process, and there are still some pull processes. So push and pull processes are moderate in number. Okay, wonderful. Make to engineering. So here we know that the pull processes will be higher than the push processes for sure, right? Because here the customer may ask him that the slicing of bread is also something which can be customized according to the customer requirement. So I would say like I need to be in a circular in shape, right? So slicing of bread here can also be turning it up into a pull process. Yes, agreed. Under make to engineering scenario, MTE.
Yes, I understand. Like again, I'm just trying to understand the difference between make to order and make to engineering. Both are order based only, right? How does engineering differs from the order in which sense?
Very good. That's a really valid question, Jay. So probably when you see in the context of make to order, there was only a limited scope of window for me to choice. Like maybe he says, "Sir, do you need extra cheese? Do you need extra butter? Or do you need extra spices?" So he gives me three options, and of three of them, I'm supposed to select one of them, right? So that's an MTO for me. I'm still having a very limited window. In my MTE, make to engineering, it's a customer centric market here. It's a customer centric product.
Okay.
So here I myself I'm saying like okay, my sandwich should never be looking like in a triangle. It should be looking like circular in shape. So that gives me a complete window of my options. It gives me a whole scope to redesign my whole product as per my need. That's the difference between a make to engineering and make to order. Hope you got me, or it is
Yeah, I
still not clear.
understand. But I
Okay.
understand. Let me rephrase. Like what I understand is, in case of make to order, the level of customer centricity is limited,
Correct.
wherein the push process is applicable to some extent, whereas
Mhm.
pull is applicable to very small segment. Whereas in case of make to engineering, majority of the process is around the pull processes rather than push
Yeah.
process.
Correct. Correct, exactly. So make to engineering has a higher pull processes for sure, and both the parties they are aware that okay, that it would be a time consuming. So obviously, if I'm supposed to redesign the whole product, yeah, it is known to me that okay, I'm supposed to wait for much more longer time than what I would really wait in my MACD to get it done because it needs a special attention for me to be paid. Wonderful. Yeah. So now let us try to see if I'm a client who is trying to make up the business process. Let us say it's MTS or MTO or MTE. What we see is like nowadays, or like we see that there's a higher scope for the clients or for the different manufacturing products. They see like they are more now trying to move intent more with the customer specifications, right? So a made to stock may not be every time a possibility for me to uplift the demand for which I'm trying to address, right? So that means when I'm trying to fulfill my demand, at the same time I cannot ensure that I am trying to have a complete utilization of my make to stock scenario only. I may also have to fall into make to order or into make to engineering scenario. So if you see in this context of make to order and make to engineering, what is the most important thing which they have to be ahead of place is the material availability and the capacity availability. I will speak about the capacity, or probably I will say it as the capabilities now. Okay, I need someone who has skilled enough to assemble the sandwich as and when the customer has placed an order, right? And at the same time all the necessary materials which are needed for me in order to make it up should also be readily available for me. Until unless I do not have my materials and my capabilities available for me, it would be really a tough job for me to give my fulfillment to the demand with a quicker response time. Agreed, Jay?
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
So here comes what makes the client to really opt for PPDS? So material planning, so maybe you might have heard about production planning. This is also an existing core module of OLTP system. So what makes the client to come ahead of, like, he has to use an advanced planning when there's a production planning already in place. So the material planning and the capacity planning are not dealt at a one single step in the context of production planning. Whereas the PPDS, the production planning and data scheduling, it gives you a capability in order to address these two different entities of, so I would say like two different worlds altogether, to be enable the client to plan them in a one single go or simultaneously. So that's a very important reason what makes a client to decide, okay, I'm supposed to use the production planning and data scheduling. Okay,
Yes.
so material planning and capacity planning. Okay, so I'm not going to start with the whole introduction of material planning, different types of it and all. But once we start with the master data requirements, after we really start complete with our gap analysis sessions, probably we will speak about how are these master data requirements are essentially helpful for me in the context of planning, and how am I trying to. So what is the derivation process and all those things, I will be speaking more about them in detail in our next sessions. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe I will ask you a couple of few questions, maybe to get more awareness about your experiences, so that I can also get it mapped. So, for example, probably when I'm starting with the CIF core interface, which really has a bridge between these two different systems, how does it works and all. I'm going to brief you with the more examples, but maybe I will also ask you about your awareness towards them. When you say like, okay, I'm aware of this topic, you could just let me know. We can just touch base it and we can go for the next one. Or if you say like, okay, I need an example for this, you can stop me there and I will give you more examples if needed. Yeah.
Sure.
Questions so far?
I'm good. I just one question like material availability and capacity planning. In case of production planning, also we'll assess the capacities, right? When we create
Mm-hmm.
routines or work
Mm-hmm.
centers, we also put the constraints into that one, right? So,
Correct.
so how that differs here, means I just want to understand a bit more, means uh,
Okay, so maybe I will cut short it. Maybe that gives you much more hint. So material and capacity planning in production planning, they are two-step procedure.
okay,
Agreed. Whereas in
yeah, I
PPDS,
agree.
it's a one-step procedure. So how it is able to achieve and all, probably we will discuss more in detail. But in a nutshell, I would say it's a one step procedure. Yeah.
Okay,
uh, okay, so then we will also just uh, speak about the upstream and downstream. Jay, did you have an opportunity to or you're aware of these terms, upstream and downstream?
yeah, I have previously worked for oil and gas industry, and
Wonderful.
we used to work with downstream and upstream, wherein the oil exploration and those things are different, and oil selling is different. So I know those concepts, Anil.
Yeah, yeah. So, and maybe we will be asking you many questions in the same fashion, just to get awareness, so that, okay, don't mind me wrong, because our gap analysis sessions are something bridged for that, so that we can really tailor our sessions for you. Yeah,
Sure, sure, sure.
but thank you. So, probably whether it's an upstream or downstream, probably there are three important flows which we should be aware of. Hope you are aware of it. Then there's the information flow, material flow, and financial transactions flow, or financial data flow. So our advanced planning, it emphasizes, or has a greater influence on these two important flows. One is information flow, a higher weightage I would say, then the material flow. Yeah. So we have different combinations depending on to what the scope the client would really want to opt So you would see a combination of, say, the client would see for demand planning, supply network planning, and PPDS, or he could have an SMP, supply network planning and PPDS, or it could be a combination of GATP and PPDS. So depending on what is the scope he would like to really evolve with, on that basis he would decide what are different modules he would like to take to be integrated under his advanced planning options. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the granularity of planning achievable with PPDS. Some important point which we should be aware of. The planning granularity with PPDS is achievable till seconds. Okay, so it can do the planning as granular as till seconds. That's the another important advantage a client would be achieving using the PPDS. There's also the reason behind, even with the very new products of SAP, say S4 HANA, it also has PPDS in its place, because such a granular level of planning is something which SAP has not never had again produced. So that's the reason why it also has this in S4 HANA system also. Yeah.
Okay. So since you have brought up this topic of S4 HANA and PPDS, so
Hmm.
the current PPDS which we are talking is ECC, right? VCC supply chain module, supply chain component of APO. So to what extent this PPDS is available in the S4 HANA, how that differs? Like you have any information?
Yeah, we there's also a batch who has recently has completed with S4 HANA. So I would probably
Okay.
just tell you the what are the production planning and data scheduling, what are the methodologies of it, how would the master data requirements or let us say like how the planning aspects of it is, it has been preserved for you also in S4 HANA. Okay, you have a better customer say experience, I would say that's surely there for you. You have a much more easy in the in the process of say getting the data moving from one place to, from one system to another system. So those hurdles have been reduced to a very great extent, but the whole methodologies, or you say the whole functionality of PPDS, it is still preserved for you also in S4. So what are you trying to invest the time on this, learning on this? This can be directly been applied for you when you move on to your S4 HANA system in any future client engagements with your client. Yeah.
Sure. So again, I know it's not a scope of our discussions, but so production planning is no more in S4 HANA, right? It is only PPDS.
So,
If
production
it is
planning has
out, if it is out of the scope, you can say it's not the relevant topic. I'm
no,
okay
no, no,
for that.
no, Jai. It's really it's a valid question, but I would say it has come with a new feathers, I would say, because you have MRP live altogether. So I don't say that it's no more there, but I would say it has come with a new feather, new feathers in
Okay.
its hat. I would say in that way, yeah. I don't say it has been already compressed, suppressed altogether. No, you have a clients who still use just. I mean, I don't want to use an advanced planning option to my existing landscape. It's like I have a very small system. I don't have to really do such an advanced planning to my process. I can still use a normal SAP S4 suite. In that way, probably I only a production planning system will be sufficient for me. Yeah. So it also depends on like which say product do I want to really look forward for. Yeah, but you see that production planning it has still there for you, it's also there, but it has a different new feature codes, I would say, in the S4 HANA
Oh,
system especially. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we are just trying to see up, okay, what are the different reasons that makes the client to be inclined towards, okay, I am supposed to use the PPDS. The one of the first one which we have already discussed was it can do the both material and capacity planning simultaneously. Yeah.
Yes.
Then we also spoke about the granularity of the planning, which is still seconds. It has a greater, I would say, user interfaces, or you say like you have a graphical planning possibilities. So that also makes the another reason why, okay, as a planner I could be impressively taking up this uh, advanced planning module. So so I would say higher user experience, you know, interactive planning possibilities. So these are all a few reasons, or you say the higher weightage that makes up the client to go ahead with advanced planning.
Sure.
Yes, Jay? Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so coming to the scope of PPDS. So when we as a client, when I see there are three different horizons of my planning, let us say statistical, or when I say tactical, or when I say it's operational, I have different horizons in which I'm trying to do my planning, right? So any thought process on this? You are aware of this statistical planning and all?
Yes, it is a multiple regression or statistical programming like that. We also use that for the demand planning, right? Wherein we try to
Wonderful.
project the demands basing on some calculations.
Very good. Yeah. So it's a long-term planning, I would say, at a nutshell, right? So it's a long-term planning for me when I'm speaking in the context of statistical planning. But when I say the tactical planning, it's a mid-term planning for me, right? So
Yes.
whereas the operational planning is a short-term planning. So my PPDS planning tool will help me for my making up my operational planning more efficient. So my PPDS would fall under short-term planning, that is operational planning. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Addition to this, do you want any thought process? Okay, why would client would opt for PPDS? What are your thought process now?
Yeah, now I realize that client basically asks for PPDS to have the mix of material planning and the other component mixed together in the same single step.
Mm-hmm.
Then they want to see the granularity of seconds level information they can find.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing you said is around the interface where user works on that one similar to the planning cockpit, similar to that one, they can have this PPDS available to them so that they can easily work on that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I realized why a customer will go for PPDS rather than uh, the production plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it gives the additional features for me for sure. So additional to this, what else is there for me in the shelf is I can do an what if analysis. This is a very interesting one. As a planner, I'm supposed to have this option for me. What if analysis. Okay, so how am I able to do this? We are going to speak about this something called as version management, and how grateful it would be as a planner for me to do this what if analysis, and also making me to realize, okay, what is the potential when I'm trying to do these changes and how it is going to impact my planning. If I'm able to do this, that gives me much more, I would say, a more vision about or more clear aspects of my planning, right? So this is another one important thing that makes client to think about, okay, advanced planning, because it gives him the option of what if analysis. Yeah, Jay?
Yes, yes, I know because even in the demand planning and S&P, we go for what if scenario with models and versions, right? Wherein we
Very
have
good.
version
Very
zero zero 0 and version 01, and we can simulate
correct.
and we can come out with it. Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. So this is also another reason that makes the client to think about, okay, production planning and data scheduling gives me a scope of a much more better view of planning. Okay. These many good things it brings up to the client that makes it an impressive way that, okay, production planning is something I'm able to improvise more and all. Now in our upcoming sessions we'll be speaking more about the whole right from the architecture point of view, how it has been much more simplified, right from your OLTP and OLAP systems, online transactions processing system, to your online analytical processing system. How are they getting more interactive data processing, and what makes the advanced planning, especially because it's now it is speaking in the context of operational planning. So we are also getting bound with some different constraints. So when you see the statistical planning, the constraints are to a very high extent they have been minimized, or I would say they're into solos. But when I go to tactical, probably I'm trying to look forward for a few. But when I come to an operational planning, I have really a few challenges, or I would say constraints in my planning aspects. So how are they been considered? How are they been approached? That we are going to understand more in detail in our next session's plan. Yes, Jay?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. So you have any other questions with respect to like how the sessions would be proceeding? Yeah.
No,
No, right?
I'm comfortable with the way it is. You're taking the one initially you explained about the different MRP types or or what you call the make to order, make to stock. Then you made us aware of those concepts. Then took into the example of different way it is managed, and slowly you come into the real stuff of how the information is advantageous. So it's good.
Okay. Thank you.